Disordered. Now, in this section, I want to talk and apply some information. It may apply to you, it may not apply to you, but it'll make a huge difference in being able to say goodbye to anger if it does apply to you. Now, God designed our souls to actually be in order because God is a God of order. And there are several variables that can disorder our soul. And when it gets disordered, we act differently until we work to bring our soul back into order. And the disorders I want to mention in this segment can be a player in someone being able to say goodbye to anger or having more challenges saying goodbye to anger. People with disorders have to address the entire disorder and do the work that we are suggesting in saying goodbye to anger. So just like the previous segment, we talked about addictions. All right, if anger is the addiction, that's great. But if you have other addictions, you do the anger piece and the addiction piece. Same here, okay? If you have a disorder and the anger, you want to do the anger piece we're talking about, but then also get help with the disorder because they might be interconnected. The first disorder is more physiological, which means it's mostly a chemical issue in the brain. And if this disorder exists, you want to see a psychiatrist that specializes in this particular disorder. Now, let me discuss these briefly. I want to talk about bipolar 1, 2, and manic depression because they're in the same family of disorders. Now, these I just want to explain. And if you want to check out more, you can do your own research online or see a psychiatrist. This video is not about disorders. This is just a segment. But these are mood disorders that have to do with mood shifts that are more chemical related than soul related. With bipolar 1 and 2, the mood shifts are mild. The up and down, okay? And you can turn on a dime, okay? With absolutely no warning, your mood is totally different in place. Way up, way down. And it's not even related to what's going on whatsoever, okay? Things can be perfectly fine and you all of a sudden go down or up. Okay, now in 1 and 2, it's a slighter elevation as far as up and down, but you and your family can go, okay, mom or dad's in this kind of mood, and or that the person is in a different place than they were just 10 minutes ago. Okay, they can experience hyper focus, restlessness. I feel like they're on some kind of mission to get something done, okay? And then they flatline, and they're quickly very unmotivated. They're experiencing multiple kinds of moods, frequently and extremely. They feel very unregulated emotionally, so you don't know who you're going to get. That's the way people around you feel. And they don't know what's going to happen with you at any moment, okay? And their behavior, if you're around this person, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense to you either. Okay, so bipolar 1 and 2 is kind of like, things might be fine for a few days or even a week, but then it can shift. Okay, it can be closer than that. It can be a few days apart. But it's the range is, say, maybe here, where manic depression is extreme highs, okay, that can last for longer periods of time, weeks, sometimes even months. And depression, boom, can also crash in such a deep way they can't really even get out of bed or function, okay? And that can last for weeks or months and become very unfunctional. And if you identify with any of these, you can see a psychiatrist for an evaluation or visit a psychologist for testing and see if this is something else you need to address, okay? The next two disorders are identified in the DSM manual that can be really challenging if you have issues with anger. They are not biological, which simply means they're not because your body has a chemical deregulation, but they're psychological or they're in the soul. And I will briefly go through these two with a symptom list. And again, if you feel these apply to you, get psychological testing. That's not a psychiatrist, that's a psychologist who does testing. And you would ask them to do a psychological test. Or you can call my office and we can connect you with a psychologist that can do this through Zoom. And you can see if you really do have a diagnosis. Now, the first one is borderline personality disorder. Now, borderline personality disorder has these characteristics. And again, I'm just doing this because if this applies to you, it's huge. And if it doesn't, great. But borderline personality, this is the characteristics. They will frantically avoid real or imagined abandonment. I mean, usually with a borderline, they will have like the situations where if they even feel like you're rejecting them, they can way overreact. Okay, the last thing they want to do is be rejected. Number 2, unstable and intense relationships. Either in a borderline situation, people are amazing and your best friend and you feel so close to them, and then you can hate them and never want to see them again, and they are Darth Vader to you. They are the enemy of your soul. And this goes on again and again and again repeatedly in your life. Okay? And if you're living with a borderline, it feels that way. It's like I was wonderful last night, and today you hate me with everything you've got. And it's intense, okay? It's intense passion for the other person and intense contempt for the other person. You're like everything to them or nothing, and they cut you off, and it's like you can see like this, they have nothing for you. Number 3, identity disturbance. They're unstable in who they are. They might be like super religious, but then also super immoral, or cheat or lie or do other crazy things that are incongruent with their faith. Number 4, they have at least 2 areas of impulsivity. Spending, sex, substance abuse, food, reckless driving, gambling, and anger. Okay, they can get out of control with that. Number 5, threats or gestures of suicide as a pattern. They have threatened to kill themselves repeatedly, sometimes to the point where it can feel like if you're in a relationship with them, you don't start to take them seriously, all right? And that's a sad condition. But if you're borderline, you probably threatened suicide throughout your life several times. They have mood instability. Actually, inside them, their moods are like a pinball machine, and it feels like their moods they're happening too fast for them to keep up with. They're dysregulated. All right. Number 7, and this is important, consistent feelings of emptiness. Like if they're not engaged, they feel empty, alone, disconnected, and kind of lost. Number 8, inappropriate or intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. So you can see this is one of the characteristics of a borderline. But now, if you only have one, don't worry about it. Number 9, stress-related fears. They get really kind of motivated by fear, or they see fear where fear doesn't exist or doesn't need to exist. Now, you have to have 5 or more of these symptoms, okay? And if you do, this can be an issue for you, and it will make saying goodbye to anger more challenging because it's part and it's interconnected with the whole disorder. And I would highly recommend seeing a psychologist to clarify if this is an issue for you before you give yourself a self-diagnosis. There might be other factors. And do not give yourself a diagnosis, even if you are a psychologist, okay? Don't do it. Get the test, because I've had many people think they were one diagnosis or another, or their spouse thought they were one diagnosis or other. And I've had so many of my clients take psychological tests, and the spouse or them, it was not what they believed. So please, research suggests that a therapy approach called DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is the best for helping someone who struggles with that. So you can Google that and see if there's people in your area that can work with that. All right, but that's a real deal. And those people get really angry and they can feel out of control. Now, the last disorder that could have extra challenges with saying goodbye to anger is called histrionic personality disorder. Now, I want to say this first before I go into this one. Because in my office, I've dealt with a lot of women who have been betrayed by their husbands in 3 different ways. They've been cheated on by affairs, infidelity, or sex services by their husband. They have experienced porn addiction from their husband, and they also have experienced intimacy anorexia, which is the active neglect of the spouse. They're too busy for you, they blame you, they withhold spiritually, they withhold emotionally, they withhold sexually, they're unwilling to talk about their feelings. They blame you for the problems in the relationship. They're too busy for you. They tend to have like a negative narrative about you in their brain, whether they talk about it or not, which sounds like criticism, whether they explain it to you or not, and you feel married and alone. Now, these women have taken psychological tests, and many of them will come up with characteristics of histrionic, but they're not truly histrionic, because trauma can sometimes create the situation that looks histrionic. So I would say if you've experienced any of those as a man or woman, get a test and verify that. But if it just features, it's a reaction to trauma. Now, if you have enough that actually fits you, then you need to work on this as a diagnosis as well. All right, so this is the characteristics for histrionic. Number 1, shallow or very changeable emotions. It's like they're just not very deep, okay? And it seems like when they talk, they're not really saying much. That's kind of like the shallowness of it. Number 2, assuming intimacy with others that may not exist. Like they think that you're their best friend, but you don't think that you're their best friend. Like they tend to over-imagine how connected we are in a relationship. Hypersensitivity to criticism. You don't want to say something negative to this person because they will defend themselves. They will not take responsibility. They will blame you. They will think you're being mean to them or something like this. Manipulative behavior, okay, and that can show up in many ways. Disproportionate emotional reaction. This is where the anger comes in. You know, you do a level 1 offense towards this person, but you get a level 9 response in the anger. All right, it's disproportionate. And this is why, if they are truly histrionic, again, kind of like the borderline, the feelings are happening faster than they can manage. And there's some protocols we'll get into later that can help the situation, but it also needs to be dealt with. Oftentimes, histrionic is sexually provocative. Even as a Christian woman or man, they dress in such a way where they're drawing attention to the shape of their body, or they're seductive in their mannerisms, or they want to have kind of off-color conversations, and it comes across very sultry or seductive, and it just bring that energy around them that they want people to look at them in a way that, you know, they're beautiful or they're handsome. You know, it has that kind of feel to it. Number 7, a compulsive desire for attention. And they will dress and act in ways that gets them attention. Number 8, preoccupation with appearance. They are the kind of person who they want to be like perfect looking. They want and if they're mussy or, you know, imperfect, it doesn't go well with them. They need extra time in the front of the mirror to get it done. They're not narcissists. Okay, they just want to really, really look their best all the time because of getting that attention so important to them. Number 9, they're very suggestible and easily influenced. They can change their mind depending on who they're with. Because they're pretty shallow, they can move around a lot and having opinions and going along with the last voice that they heard or the last YouTube video they watched or the last teaching they got or whatever, okay? Now again, if you feel this is an issue for you and you have 5 or more of these characteristics, I want you to see a psychologist for testing before giving yourself this diagnosis. And people who have any of these other disorders can still say goodbye to anger. You can still do the work we're talking about. And they just have to address both as they go forward. They say goodbye to anger and they deal with these things and they can still have a happily ever after.